Let me see. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've been well?
Yes, I've been well. And you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for joining in again. So I just want us to have a small discussion about your area of expertise. You've been doing so great things that I've been following keenly and sharing on my Facebook. I don't know if you've noticed or you ever noticed, because I've been sharing most of the things that you've been doing on my Facebook page and part of Instagram. So I just had my YouTube channel. So I will also share that, and I will want to share this discussion on my YouTube channel as well. So maybe as we begin, you just tell us who Anthony Ojwang is. Introduce yourself.
You want me to do so? So I'm Anthony Cheng. I couple up as a couple of things, from being a wildlife ecologist, a conservation photographer, and a filmmaker. I run a platform called Tony Wild that uses visuals to link people and nature, and also a co-founder to Biophilic Conversation that is mainly to inspire young people into conservation. Yeah.
Okay, so basically young people, the youth, I'd say that the youth, you just like you're empowering them and you're promoting them to involve in conservation matters, right?
Yes, so basically for me, it's more of including children and young people. So I just couple them as young people.
Okay.
So, and also to some extent, my work goes to older people, because now those who have no idea about wildlife get to relate with me personally, and and get to connect with me through what I do,
Okay.
so they can actually appreciate wildlife. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So thank you very much. So basically, my page is to increase, or rather to promote awareness on sustainability, and specifically the Sustainable Development Goals. So basically, it's just to let people, to be more aware of the Sustainable Development Goals, the targets, and where we are. So I will base our discussion on the Sustainable Development Goals with regards to your initiatives. So I was able to pick at least 3 or 2 SDGs. So maybe if we just jump straight to them. So we have maybe the Sustainable Development Goal number 13, the climate action. Yeah. So how is climate change affecting wildlife conservation? Yeah, we've seen that climate change, there's evidence of climate change, and it exacerbates natural disasters on the climatic risks, such as floods, droughts, wildfires. So how is climate change and these climatic hazards affecting wildlife conservation?
So basically, climate are more of the effects of what as human beings are doing, especially on anthropogenic activities. That is human activities that we do that are not really planned out, and that forms part of habitat destruction, mainly that affects wildlife conservation. So climate change is more of an effect of what we are doing to the earth, and most of the time is that people need to understand that habitat destruction is one of the key aspects that actually causes wildlife numbers to go down, and also climate change at the same time. Yeah, so that's what I'll talk about mainly on climate action. But people need to also understand that climate change is just an effect. The root cause of the issues are mainly our anthropogenic activities.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so poor development structures, habitat destructions, uh, assuming that an insect is not important or a butterfly is not important in an ecosystem, which is something that I really push for, that wildlife is important regardless of what location it's found, a bird, an insect, a snail, a slug, anything. They're actually important, or even a grass species. Uh, they are important. So sometimes, as much as climate change effects are being known globally, the climate restoration action should look at uh, changing the adverse effects of anthropogenic activities. Because mostly climate action activists, I call them, will focus mainly on tree restoration, green energy, and stuff, but they're forgetting that those are just solutions, which some of them actually have an effect on habitat destruction. So there's a clean balance. It's mainly called contemporary issues because everybody's talking about climate change. So all of us are there, climate change and action and everything else. But the bigger issue is that we need to look at us as human beings, the activities that we do, and address them because those are the root causes of wildlife loss, climate impacts, both negative and positive in one or another. But we need to come back and address the issues. So for me, the issues I address are education.
Okay.
I may look at it as education because awareness has been done for quite a long time, but education is where one is able to pick up that skill and apply it into their day-to-day base life. And that is why I use images and films to push for call to actions. If somebody can see that some particular area has changed with the effort of the communities, they can do the same in their community or somewhere else. Or if they see an image of a distressed ecosystem, let's say like, for example, Nairobi River with carcass of dogs in it, uh, and and the sewage in it. So that makes you think that as much as we talk about climate change, the issue is actually the way we manage ourselves on the ecosystem. So without proper education, you can't really address climate change without talking about proper education and not awareness. Awareness, people are aware. People are aware. It's not they're not aware. People are aware. It's just people need to develop a culture and incorporate it into their spaces on what they do. A
Okay.
simple example is plastic waste. Uh, we talk about saving the oceans, but the mainland themselves are a hub of plastic waste. Poor
Exactly.
littering behavior, the rivers are dirty. Yeah, so there's a way we need to, as much as the global society is talking about oceans, climate action, we need to come back to be so local to our own environment. Like I
Okay.
want my mom to litter properly, like put that in the right place. Yeah.
Okay.
Segregate waste and everything else.
Exactly. Like
Uh,
a clear
yeah,
solid,
yeah,
like a solid waste management.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
Uh-huh.
so it will be for me to be useless talking to a global world when I go back home. That is not happening. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So maybe to get it clear, and maybe for the people who are following me, wildlife is not only the wild animals that we see on the land. We also have the wildlife underwater, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes. Yeah.
something linked, other sustainable development goals linked to that is the Sustainable Development Goal 15 and Sustainable Development Goal 14. So with the 15 is the life on land. Yeah. So like the SDG goal states that it protects, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems sustainably, manage the forest rights, as you've mentioned, combat desertification, and halt reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. So where are we as a country, Kenya, and maybe Africa, in attaining this sustainable development goal?
Uh, for me, I feel that we are on the right track.
Okay.
But again, for me, I feel like we are communicating sometimes within ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
environmentalist, conservationist,
Mm-hmm.
about the sustainable development goals.
Mm-hmm.
But then the society, the communities that benefit from them, some of them don't really understand what's going on.
Okay.
Uh, and as much as I can say yes, we are doing well, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, I feel like we need to. You'll forgive me for saying this, but we need to move from clustering things so that we can just make them as targets. We need to
Mm-hmm.
make environmental conservation
Actually.
as a part and parcel of our day-to-day life basis, and
Exactly.
not set goals on them, because if we have a proper environmental systems,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have proper health, we'll have proper food systems, we'll have good life, and everything else. Sustainable goals are amazing, and I'll be honest, I'm not a really a super person of sustainable goals.
Mm-hmm.
I do my part as
Exactly.
as and let I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to fit into systems. I just want to ensure that each and every person understands that the environment is the backbone of a political society, an
Mm-hmm.
economic society, and our food society. Like you mess up with any component of the environment or nature or habitat, it
Mm-hmm.
affects your political space, it affects economic space, it affects your food
Social.
systems, it affects, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that aside is that the development goals are just to help us manage uh, on how to regulate the fundings and what we need to focus on. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel we leave some aspects out. We
Mm-hmm.
leave a given group of people who would want to help or who are key in the process uh, from that particular space. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to school or you're not a conservationist, when you talk about SDG 14, they'll be like, what the hell is that?
What is
I need
that?
money. I need
Mm-hmm.
money to continue working. My
Exactly.
worry is my food in the table.
Mm-hmm.
They might be doing it, but unwillingly doing it. So the structures of SDGs need to exist,
Mm-hmm.
but then we as practitioners need to not just talk about them, but help them achieve SDGs at their own level.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you
Yeah,
for coming there because I was to go there. What do we
yeah.
need to do to attain these targets or these goals, let's say? And the way that you're mentioning, there's some gaps, and there's so many people have issues to do with these SDGs. They feel that there are some gaps, that the one that you're also mentioning, and I believe that it is important to really go down to the local communities there and communicate to them the way that you're mentioning, to educate them. So this is a sustainable approach, or an important adaptation options with regards to attaining these targets and these goals per se. So I can also ask you issues to do with the wildlife and the extinction and the way wildlife is threatened. And I was going through some lists. I can see that there are a lot of species that are currently threatened and they're nearly extinct, according to the IUCN, the red list. So, what's the deal with that? Because you're just based in Kenya, you can base it in Kenya. Uh, what are the main causes of wildlife extinction, or threatened? Uh, why do we have threatened wildlife? If you get that right.
So the numbers of wildlife being threatened are a cause of a long-term issues of one, habitat loss. I'll mention poaching,
Mm-hmm.
but for other specific species, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the main actual cause of habitat numbers going down is actually habitat loss. And habitat loss is caused by either uh, selfish people who want to grab large tracts of land,
Mhm.
or I can't target to population growth. That's one thing I can't target to population growth
Uh-huh.
because there are structures put in place to manage population growth, and that's why we have governments to ensure that populations are managed in one or another.
Mhm.
So for me, population growth in Africa and conservation does not really tie along uh, at all. For me, it's just the matter of habitat loss. As the population is existing, the
Mhm.
demand that it's requiring is highly increasing in terms of agriculture, and then so much tracts of lands are being cleared, causing other species to lose uh, their their habitats. For example, the Rothschild giraffe. If you look
Mhm.
at the Baringo region, the Eldoret region, these are regions where they actually occupied before, but
Mhm.
right now they are all turned into tea estates, farmlands. But if you look at who owns those particular farmlands, they're just specific individuals. So it's it's a long history of injustices in terms of wildlife conservation. Uh, I don't know. That's the way I look at it because the more I keep doing this, the more I keep looking at things from a different point of view.
Mhm.
What we can read in the books is mainly habitat loss, but the question a lot being told is who's causing this habitat loss? Because
Eh,
the communities live a very minimal life. You're from Kenya, you understand how exactly we live. We go home, it's a very minimal life. You have your fish, you have your small house,
mhm.
you have your small shamba. So it's very, very simple. But then the demand of commercialization, especially for one crops,
Mhm.
for common, how do you call them?
Commercialization,
Uh,
commercialized
yeah,
cash.
of cash crops, yeah. So it makes things more complicated and even leaving the people living in those particular areas more poorer than they were before
That's
because of the cash crop issue. So there's a lot of issues around habitat loss and wildlife conservation. People don't really connect to wildlife in Kenya because when you talk about wildlife, the first thing like, oh, ile elephant na ndovu
uh-huh.
na giraffe. Not
Mhm.
understanding that wildlife is actually the birds they see, the insects, the trees. It's
Mhm.
both plant, flora, and fauna.
Mhm.
And that is something that is missing. But when people understand that, they'll be able now to take care of the small pieces of land, knowing
Exactly.
that uh, this particular space of land belongs to me and I won't make it a concrete jungle sort of like we just put slabs. I'll have like a garden somewhere.
Mm.
Let at least keep some other bird species come to play. To
Okay.
play. So main issue is actually habitat loss. For the numbers, for the decline of numbers is habitat loss, and this
Okay.
has happened for a very long time since colonial till today. So
And
right now we're just trying to recap the issues. Yeah.
you are strongly saying that it is not tied to population strain and the idea of agricultural expansion due to the population strain. So you were not
Yeah.
basing it on that.
No,
Yeah.
I won't.
Clearly, so that's new because everyone will mention that the habitat loss is as a result of the population strain, and thus people have to clear the forest so that they're able to get, to feed their families. Yeah.
Population strain is in the cities where everybody is. That is where
Mm-hmm.
it is. But if you just move out of the cities a bit,
Mm-hmm.
people are living freely, and there's so much pieces of land left there to just. So the population strain is actually in the cities, and that is an index that I feel needs to be looked at really, really clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
because if you look at the UK, there's so
Mm-hmm.
many people in the UK in a small piece of land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it for me in Africa it does not make sense. For
Oh,
if you talk about population growth, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. So you mentioned that there was also wildlife under the sea, our oceans, and so forth. So, uh, how are we as a country with regards to conserving and sustainably using our oceans and seas? Yeah, with regards to conserving the life under the sea.
So I really won't talk much about the coastal area or the seas because I'm not really involved so much in them. Uh, but I believe there's much being done in the country about conservation of oceans and ocean life forms. My main focus is for me, we don't stay in the seas, we stay in land. So if you don't appreciate the ones we first see on land,
Mhm.
I can't appreciate the ones that are way far away from me.
Okay.
So
Oh,
that's
fair
why
enough.
I started with birds, because birds are all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
You can see them everywhere. You can hear them sing in the morning.
The morning.
You yeah, you can't walk without missing to see a bird.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why for me, I use birds as an entry point into
Mm-hmm.
conservation, because if I appreciate the bird I see on a daily basis, I can appreciate the life forms under in the oceans and
Mm-hmm.
seas. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so in your discussion, you're mentioning the various challenges with regards to wildlife. So now, if we just base it in Kenya, so these challenges that we're facing with regards to wildlife conservation, and what would you suggest are the main, or rather the best adaptation options that can be used in ensuring that there is wildlife conservation? You mentioned education, not only awareness, but education. What are the other adaptation options that you feel are feasible with regards to wildlife conservation in Kenya?
In
Just
Kenya. So mainly for me in Kenya is that I'll see if I can categorize into three sections. One, the political space,
mm-hmm,
uh, and that is something that is not really being touched as much.
mm-hmm,
We need to elect to choose political leaders who can support conservation. That is in terms of finances, in terms of giving them time and everything else, so we can continue to conserve wildlife in the future. So that's
mm-hmm,
that political space. Secondly, economic aspect of it.
mm-hmm,
Wildlife plays a key role in not only sustaining all life forms, but also economically in terms of tourism and other aspects attached to tourism. Uh,
mm-hmm,
as much as they say that uh, tourism is the highest earner of the economy in the country, but that is
mm-hmm,
not being fed. That is not being fed back to the societies that live next to wildlife. So again,
yeah.
the economic and political will has to come into play.
Mm-hmm,
So that's one key. The other aspect is that more people need to join the science world for conservation, especially for Africans and Kenyans,
mm-hmm,
to be able to look at conservation as a career,
mm-hmm,
and not just focus on other careers. And just to talk about careers again is that we need each and every person, whether you're a business person, a doctor, a teacher, a lecturer, whatever you do, there's always has to be a backbone for conservation. Like
mm-hmm,
you have to have all aspects of conservation in every space we have in the country.
mm-hmm.
Uh, I know that's a long shot and it will take time for that to build up, but that is what I believe in.
Okay. So that means
Yeah.
that all key stakeholders need to be brought on board with regards to conservation, be it uh people from all angles. Yeah, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned with the under the economic, the issues to do with the involvement of the communities living around these the wildlife. So like so that is like the community participation on matters to do with the wildlife conservation. Is that correct?
Yeah. So uh, let me just give you an example,
Mm-hmm.
or a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Compare Masai Mara and Ruma National Park.
Mm-hmm.
If
I've
you
been
look at
to
the
both.
economics,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you've been to both. So
Yeah.
if you compare, if you talk to a Masai Mara person, you're like, yeah, I get money from wildlife. But if you talk to somebody from the Ruma part of the country, like, hiyo tu ni shamba tu ya wanyama tu iko tu huko. So they
Mm-hmm.
won't take it seriously.
Exactly.
So if you want each and every Kenyan to appreciate it, we need to have models where the county government make sure that uh, tourism profits come back to the society, and they're made very clear that this is money that is coming from the effort of conserving wildlife. Uh,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
and a budget needs to be put in place, and that's why I was talking about political will. Trust me, we've talked about these issues. We've sung plant trees, conserve your wildlife, proper littering behavior. The truth is, right now we need to go political and economical. Like we need to. I don't want to be a politician. I'll never be a politician. But if anybody is standing for politics or anything, I'll advise them that they need to make sure that they don't disregard the aspect of environment and conservation of wildlife. It is
Exactly.
very, very key. Yeah.
And I like the comparison. So that's where we bring the environmental economics point of view, where they really advocate the incentives, like giving the people incentives to be able to conserve the natural resources. So like there's the things to do like willingness to pay, willingness to accept compensation and so forth, or rather privatizing the public good. We know that the natural resources are public goods, free for all. If you're given an incentive to conserve
Yeah.
natural resources, so you will actually conserve these natural resources. And at the end of
Definitely.
the day, this is a sustainable approach. And the people, our future generation will be able to enjoy whatever we have whatever we are enjoying. So the main
Yeah.
goal is sustainable development. So I think that approach is very important. And as you're mentioning, this need to be a political will. The politicians should be able to incorporate these things so that we're able to conserve the natural resources. Yeah. So
And
maybe
it's
Mhm.
sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, it's not just about politicians, it's about policies, because
Mhm.
politicians are just a component of the policies.
Exactly.
So the policies need to play, I need to feel the policies are being implemented well.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know that our education system has a proper environmental education program. Those are
Mm-hmm.
policies and politics that plays around.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see education programs push for more conservation content in all the aspects of development, be it engineering, be it architecture, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, I talk about politics and policies. I Politicians are like a 1% of my conversation.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
They're the influence and the driving force, but then we as a society need to play with the policies development, ensuring that in our small capacities we can able to uh,
Impact.
impact conservation one another. So that's and then the change of mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the change of mindsets needs to come. Wildlife is not for Muzungu. Wildlife is ours. We need to
Exactly.
conserve it to sustain our life, not for economic gain alone.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
as
think
much
the
as we need to, yeah,
the
sorry,
economic aspect uh, has been the top priority. So that's where the
yeah,
problem is. Yeah.
yeah. So it's all about figuring out how to change our mindsets. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you ask a head teacher what is the importance of wildlife today, they
Mm-hmm.
will tell you it's tourism. And if you
Mm-hmm.
ask a class one student the same thing, they tell you tourism. But the truth is it's not tourism.
Mm-hmm.
Wildlife sustains your life. It sustains your day-to-day basis of where you're staying today. And
Mm-hmm.
that is what I advocate for, or what I stand for. Not advocate for,
Mm-hmm.
but that is what I stand for. And it will never change. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
quite interesting. So, maybe your closing remarks, because I think the people who follow us will be able to learn a lot. I've actually learned a lot. I've never known so many things to do with wildlife and wildlife conservation. So maybe your closing remarks or the parting shots.
Oh gosh. Do I really have closing remarks? I can
Do
talk until
you?
tomorrow about wildlife.
Do you?
uh, no, the thing is, I think we as Kenyans need to start appreciating the small things we see around.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and we need to stop looking at things in terms of money. We need to look at things in terms of having a good life or having a clean and proper life, from the cities to the ushagos, the village. Because when you look at Nairobi, sometimes it's if you go to some other streets, you're like, damn, that place is dirty.
I know, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's nothing much I can do. And most, if you go to most counties right now, the management of waste is just
Terrible.
something else. So we just need to be responsible. Because
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to, like, actually say a phrase
Mm-hmm.
that you you need to treat the environment as your own space, because you cannot poop in the middle of the sitting room and just leave it there all day.
Exactly.
And that's what exactly people are doing. You are affecting the environment, but
Mm-hmm.
you want your own home to be clean and spacious. And
Mm-hmm.
that waste comes from your home.
Mm-hmm.
So people just need to change the way we handle things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I know the Western life is amazing. We need clean roads. No, we just need a simple, minimal way of living.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, let's stop
Comfortable.
being, yeah, let's stop being greedy. Let's focus on life forms, because it will not only help wildlife,
Mm-hmm.
but it will also help the society as a whole.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I can say. And that's what that is what I work for. That is why I wake up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
just to ask those who are around me to start appreciating the small things they see around them.
Exactly. We should not take for
Yeah.
granted the small things that we see around. So, these are the
Yes.
aesthetic value of nature. You cannot get it anywhere. You can just, there's that, the value of nature that you cannot get anywhere else. So, as you're
True.
mentioning, we really need to start appreciating nature. Yeah. So, mine is to say thank you very much for joining. And
Thank you.
thanks so much for this discussion. I really hope that it will impact the people who will watch, and they'll be able to learn a lot. Like I have learned a lot myself. I always believe that every day I need to learn something new. So I really
Uh,
appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time. I know you had to wake up very early for this, but I really appreciate. So if anyone wants to follow you, so they can follow you on Facebook, Instagram, and also your website. Maybe if you can just tell them.
so my website is www.tonywild.co.ke,
Mm-hmm.
and Tony Wild in all the platforms. So Tony Wild, Facebook, Tony Wild, Instagram, and Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you'll definitely find me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, so
And
that's how
you're
you can follow me.
and you're doing amazing job. Yeah, you're doing amazing stuff. Thank you for sharing on your Facebook. We're able to learn a lot. I also saw that you had some merchandise that you have. Do you still have them?
I still have merchandise, but it's on a need to need basis. So
Okay. Mm-hmm.
it's one way to just sustain my platforms of
Okay.
what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I actually said I want my brand to be used as a t-shirt for sleeping. I want it out there. I'm just being
Interesting.
Kenyan.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But I don't want somebody taking a picture of my t-shirt in going to sleep or going to bed. No, it's supposed to be out there being put on people to see.
People to see.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
uh, I'm just trying a different way of fundraising where I give services to people,
Mm-hmm.
and when they pay is when I can able now to do my projects.
Great.
So uh, for the last 3 years, I've never got any grant, but I've always been doing my stuff peacefully,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just to give an explanation that you can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to sacrifice a few stuff, uh,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
and that's a long story for me. That's a story for another day. If I tell you that, you will be like, wow, now that's another different story. Yeah,
Okay, that's nice. But
yeah.
I'd really love to work with you when I come back to Kenya. I'd really love to work with you if we can have something to do with the communities. That's one thing that I'd love to be involved in. And if any of the people who are following me also want to join in, please feel free to contact Anthony, and on his website, Facebook, Twitter, so forth. So I will also share the handles so that they are able to see. They can be able to see. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining, Anthony. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate. You have a great day ahead, and I'm
You
sure we'll
too.
keep in touch. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.